and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Good evening and welcome to We the People. Ask any Indian and the response will be there's one institution we respect, it's the military and the Indian soldier. But ask soldiers and they'll say that much of this tribute is sentimentalism that does not translate into reality. One of the most emotive debates in recent times has been over the issue of one rank, one pension. We've actually seen many ex-servicemen come out and return their medals, even sign signature petitions in blood, and yet the government believes that this particular demand of one rank, one pension is an impractical, implausible one. On the program today, we look at this entire issue of one rank, one pension. Is it really about money or is it about honor? And in not meeting this demand, are we disrespecting the soldier or is that too much of an oversimplification? Let me start with General Qadian, who's been very involved in this particular movement. General Qadian, it's a very extreme, inflammable almost, if I can use that word, step to return medals. Do you believe that by raising the campaign to that sort of inflammable level, in a sense, rationality and rational debate has gone out of this discourse?
Barka, firstly, one rank, one pension is a very old issue. It started in 1982 under a different name. And it is not about money, it is about justice. It implies equal pension for equal work, independent of the date of retirement. That is simply put. The depositing, not return, because we intend to take them back once we get our of medal is not a step of our choice, nor was it the first step. For a soldier, it is, I also consider not dignified to go on a public platform and project his demand. We met each functionary in the government, including the highest. Nobody had a single argument why OROP should not be given, except that if we give it to you, then we have to give it to others also. Now, there is a dichotomy in this. There is a mismatch between our expectation from a soldier and our obligations to him. In the expectation, we expect him to undergo all the hardships, separation, work 24 hours a day, around the clock, and lay down his life. And then when it comes to our obligation, we compare him to a 9-to-5 job. We started with the rallies. The highest in the government said, no, soldiers shouldn't be doing it. Yeah. Again, a dichotomy that when it comes to protests, everybody else does it, but soldiers shouldn't be doing it. Again, you are treating us differently. Also remember, we have decided to keep the movement disciplined and lawful. Our options then get limited. We don't want to be like anybody else, break hydrants and burn buses.
No, that would be a tragedy to see the Indian soldier doing that.
We are determined not to do that.
But let's move on to the core of the debate. Is it practical? Is it being rejected only on the grounds that it would have to then be applied to everybody? And if that is the reason, is that a good reason? Indo Liberhan, as somebody involved closely with this, how would you answer General Qadian's complaint that you can't compare the soldier to the civilian? You can't compare the soldier to the bureaucrat?
Look, you can't compare the soldier to the bureaucrat, that is right. It is not only about the issue of having to give it to everybody. You see, there is a legal problem and a financial problem, which is a different issue, but the legal issue is that pension is a derivative of your pay. It is a sort of a package given to you when you join. So if a person retires on a particular day or joins service on a particular day, he has a certain employer. Now, I'll come to the state later. Employer has a certain responsibility to his employee. He says, okay, if your pay is 100, I'm going to pay you 70, 30, I will give you over the next 30 years or whatever it is. Now, obviously, then when the pay changes, the percentage will change, and therefore the absolute number will change. If you give one rank, one pension, what you're actually doing is revising a pay with a retrospective effect, when the person has actually not worked. So the issue is that this one rank, one pension, in its concept the way they want it, is going to create problems. Government has been taking steps to bring parity to the extent possible and to the extent that the finance minister is able, or the finance ministry is able to provide the requisite
But may
funds.
I ask you, is the problem what the finance ministry is able to provide, or is the problem that you believe that as a philosophical concept that there's a problem with this because salaries change with inflation, rates of income change, and therefore pension related to it changes.
What you're saying is right. Salaries also change, not only because of inflation. Sometimes change of nature of job, increased qualifications, whatever the various reasons.
In one word, it's impractical?
It is legally not tenable at all. So you can bridge your gap, but
You can't make
have
it-
because what you're doing in OROP is technically revising the pay with a retrospective effect. That cannot happen.
Manvendra Singh, do we get too emotional about this debate? Because it's almost been constructed as if you care about the soldier, you've got to support one rank, one pension. And you've got the argument being made here that that's not what it's about, that we should be looking at higher salaries, we should be looking at better results from the next pay commission. We're now even talking about the military getting its own pay commission, all of that. But that you cannot over decades revise past salaries with a retrospective effect.
No, you can, because the question right now is on what is drawn from public funds. This is the Treasury which is paying. The Treasury pays an MP who retired in the 1950s the same pension as the MP who retired in the 1990s. That's also a public fund.
So MPs, you're saying, have
MPs
a
have-
retrospective application.
MPs do have it.
Indu?
No, how do you revise pay retrospectively? You haven't worked, you haven't earned that income. So it's not look at it technically. The point is you don't want to go into one issue and create 10 other legal hassles.
No, but the thing is,
you
what
can
has
achieve
happened-
the same purpose. Now look, the point I'm trying to make is you are looking at a question of parity in terms of money, or are you looking at just the concept that it has to be one rank, one pension?
Parity doesn't exist because the nature of job for a soldier is completely different from anybody else in the world.
No, I'm talking about
In the
parity
country-
between pre and post. Let's leave the civil out of it for the time being.
Yes, ma'am.
She's not saying soldier compared to civilian. She's saying within soldier to
Soldier.
soldier.
But
Within the soldier, I
Is
think-
it that
I
you
think
care
today-
about better salaries, or is it that you care about equal salaries over time?
I just think about it. We started the Siachen campaign in 1984, and somebody who did the campaign and then retired gets peanuts compared to somebody who is continuing to work in Siachen today and is going to retire, when the facilities today in Siachen are a million times better than what they were in 1984. The nature of the job was worse in 1984 than it is today.
Okay, let me get this perspective of a member of parliament, practical thing to do, and that you should focus instead on higher salaries for, or higher pensions for soldiers rather than parity within.
I mean, I think the starting point of this is, do we consider the armed forces as an institution that is special, an institution that we believe we owe something to a civil society and people? Let's cross that milestone first. Let's agree on that or disagree on that. Because look, I have dealt with bureaucrats all my life, and I can spin an answer and an argument for any which way the political masters tell me to spin an answer. If as a nation and as a civil society we are determined to honor and give honor to the people who have served the country and its people, we will find a way. To get sucked into this debate about whether this is legally tenable and the classic Delhi bureaucratic language, we will never solve this problem.
I think you put an emotional question out there to which everybody will say, yes, of course we do. But why then has it been so difficult for successive governments to actually make this happen? Now, Praveen, you've actually written a letter criticizing the form of protests that the ex-servicemen have chosen to employ in this case, saying that you actually think it's unconstitutional to return medals and to write protests in blood.
If you see 2004, when the UPA government came, 6 years have passed. And in these last 6 years, the amount the UPA 1 and UPA 2 has done for the welfare of ex-servicemen, especially on the issue of OROP, no government in the past has done it. For example, the pension of a sepoy prior to 2004 was less than 2,000 rupees. Today, a sepoy gets a pension of 7,000 rupees, is more than 3 times. And the government has spent 2,110 crores last year to raise the pension of PBOR. And PBOR, as you know, virtually comprise 90% of the army, and the PBOR are very happy today. We agree there are anomalies in the ranks of officers, especially majors and major generals.
Yeah.
And we are addressing those anomalies. I haven't brought a letter. The Indian Ex-Services League, which is the representative organization, which is the biggest organization of ex-servicemen, they have thanked the Prime Minister on behalf of 12 lakh ex-servicemen that, sir, thank you very much. We are extremely
But may I
grateful
just
to you.
quote another bit from your letter where you actually said that you don't believe that soldiers do what they do for money or for pensions. But I mean, does that mean that we should not focus at all on what their demands are? This romanticism of honor can be stretched the other way also, that do what you do it for your country, but nobody has to listen to you.
But you see, there has to be some limit. Now when the pensions of the PBOR have gone up virtually 3 times, we have to
Sir, you don't have a mic. 1 minute.
We have to draw a limit somewhere.
Sir, 1 minute. 1 minute, please calm down.
And, and what the Defense Minister said only a few days ago, that OROP is one issue which cannot be solved in one go. We do it in stages. So we have done it for the PBOR.
Okay.
And when the financial situation permits, when the country can afford it, we will do it for the officers only.
All right, now we've got a very irate person here. Please just express your point a little calmly. Yes.
First of all, I will object where from this PBOR word has come. ये मिस्टर दावर साहब बोल रहे हैं PBOR शब्द क्या होता है? ब्यूरोक्रेसी ने सबसे पहले हमें लेट डाउन किया है, हमारे इज्जत को भी नीचे किया है। रैंक एक ऐसा होता है जिससे पूरी आर्मी कंट्रोल होती है। सिपाही को एक नायक कंट्रोल करता है, उससे ऊपर हायरार्की बनती जाती है। एक नया शब्द PBO आ गया, हम लोग कमीशन ऑफिसर हैं, उसको जवानों के साथ लाके मिला दिया। सबसे पहले तो मुझे इस शब्द के ऊपर ऑब्जेक्शन है। मैं एक ही बात कहना चाहता हूं कि एक्स सर्विसमैन के अंदर बहुत बड़ा गुस्सा है। हमारे गुस्से पर गवर्नमेंट जो है इतना विश्वास न करे, और गवर्नमेंट जो भी हमारे राजीव चंद्रशेखर ने सारी बातें कह दी है।
अब राजीव चंद्रशेखर हैं, we will go back to him, and this is what happens. It gets emotionalized in terms of honor. General Oberoi, and there is another dimension. You have been in particular speaking on behalf of soldiers who get disabled, and that is a whole different dimension in this. If you can come in here.
The statement is wrong, which has been made here, that the Jawans are happy. 7,000 rupees is the pension of a sepoy who retires after January 2006. Compared to him, it is not even 5,000 rupees for the previous man. How can you make a statement like this? UPA has done so and so, so and so, and so forth. A secretary of the government of India, and I was equivalent to that as the vice chief of the army or as an army commander. When I retired in 2001, my pay was 26,000. Today I am getting 1 rank, 1 pension, just like 100 other secretaries are getting, just like the military MPs are getting. Why are the others not getting? To bring legal implications into it, there are no legal implications.
Okay.
Now let me come to the disabled.
Yeah.
The disabled, the war disabled as a group are unknown. Nobody knows them till you or someone else like you brings them on a podium like this. The Ministry of Defense have an up-to-date list of all martyrs in every war. There is no list of war-injured people. If you don't have a list, how will you help them? You can't help them.
But is that related to 1 rank, 1 pension?
It is related to 1 rank, 1 pension because the war injury pay which you get is in 2 parts. One is the service element and the second is your disability or war injury element. The service element is constant for everybody. If he is a major, he will get the service element of a major. And the poor chap is getting nothing. The bulk of the war disabled are those who got their injuries and became disabled when they were 25 years old or less. And they have a life to lead.
Okay.
One officer wrote a book when he retired. He's a disabled officer. You know what he called it? What he named it? The Living Dead. That's what the war injured, war disabled are. And yet the government doesn't even know how many there are.
And we're going to hear from the gentleman, Captain Sidhu, sitting right behind you in a moment. But Ajay,